Wow, wow, wow. I honestly was nervous about starting this channel because really, ankylosing spondylitis on its own is quite slow. It's not like tomorrow I'll wake up and tell you guys, look, I'm hunched over. Much of what is happening inside of me. It's in my bone marrow that's swollen, and I can't show you my swollen bone marrow. I can't even show you. I can't even tell. Like when those rheumatologists touch me and tell me my bones are tender, I don't even know what that means. I can feel the stiffness. I can feel things getting worse. I can sometimes lift my arm and then crack. And my daughter and I freeze. I was handing her uh, her medication yesterday. But it's invisible and it's slow, thankfully, but not slow enough. It's more a matter of what I can do is there's less of what I can do. So that's not really interesting unless you are interested in me, as in you care about me, concerned, or unless you're going through something similar, then you can relate. But otherwise, it's just boring to come tell you I'm in pain again. The special needs, it's the same old thing every single day. So I thought I would not have much to put on here. And I thought, oh my word, this is just going to be some huge failure. I will have 5 videos, and just when people are starting to get interested in my life as a South African, it'll just, things will peter out and I won't have much to say. But somehow, at least for now, I do have much to say. I do have things to say. Things happen. Here's what happened last week. Was it 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week, yes. Oh, I had surgery. I guess I can put the two together. I had my surgery on Friday. It was meant to be a radiothermal ablation, which is where they go in and they burn your uterus, your lining of the uterus, to make it scar over and thereby prevent uterine bleeding. But also, they were going to do a hysteroscopy to look around and see why I had such a problem in the first place. Because I'm in menopause, I shouldn't have that problem, and I hadn't had that problem for 5 months. So it was, it was a concern. So they did go in and they did find something small, but something, and it kind of looked like a polyp, but it wasn't a polyp, something like that. So it's gone off for testing. So I'm recovering from that. It's slow. The burning, I've never had a radiothermal ablation before, so I don't know what it's meant to feel like. So I don't know whether I'm feeling the little small biopsy where they took the biopsies. I think they're also going to take from other areas of my uterus also. Or if I'm feeling pain from the burning. As the gynae said afterwards, I'm thoroughly seared, totally burnt, or a mixture of both. But either way, it's sore. And I shouldn't do too much. I shouldn't do anything really. So I'm trying to just walk for exercise. And I did some laundry yesterday and I really hurt myself. So I'm trying to be good. So yes, that's the surgery. I'm waiting for results. I am pretty sure, like all my other scares, this is not a cancer. But I just want my results so I can tell you it's not a cancer and we can move on. Okay. Back to what happened last week before my surgery. My daughter Amarissa, who is 9 years old and who still has her rib issue, which we will see a surgeon about on the 23rd. We don't know if he can help us, but we will see someone on the 23rd. She's got ADHD. She's got some other learning disabilities. She's got imperfect speech. Like, I don't know how to say it, but her sentences are not correct. Yeah, that's what I can say. Her sentences are not correct. Her wording doesn't flow for what she wants to say or ask. I have to ask her, what do you mean? Or can you say that again? And she's so soft, so you can't hear it. And she has a lisp, but that's neither here nor there. She's a girl. Girls notoriously are underdiagnosed for autism. So we do know she's got ADHD, we do know she has dyslexia, we do know she has dyscalculia, and we also know she is low registration on the sensory profile, which will be important just now. So let me explain that. I have explained it before. But it means she needs a lot of stimulation in order to feel, whether it's physically or emotionally. So she needs something to be really exciting for it to get her attention. Mostly it should be something in what something she's interested in also. And same thing with physically. If she falls, it's like she just tripped. That's how she'll react. She won't complain about a sore knee. She won't cry. She doesn't feel much at all. So her emotions also therefore are low key, she's chilled. She really is chilled. She's chilled. So autism. I have 3 diagnosed autistic children. One is and we have one who we are all very sure is autistic, and level 1, I would say. She doesn't need much support at all. That's my other twin who talks a lot. So I've got that. And with my daughter Amarissa, nothing really jumped out at me and said, autistic. Yeah, nothing really jumped out at me. But the pediatrician, or rather when I was describing her, before we had a psychological assessment for her most recent one, educational psychologist, she asked, are we sure she's not also autistic? So I said, oh, I don't really know. I've never had her assessed for it. I've never gone and looked at traits and then compared them to her. With my other children, the traits were so obvious that I said, okay, they're autistic without even going to look first. So I said, well, I don't know, maybe you'll discover it during your assessment. But during the assessment, that was it. She didn't mention it again. Then we saw a pediatrician in town, and this lady, doctor, she was watching her, and my daughter was lining things up, lining the dinosaurs up and the toys. And she asked me, have you ever had her assessed for autism? So I said, no, but now you're the second person to bring it up. And, I wouldn't be insulted or upset if she is autistic. It means nothing to me, if you know what I mean. It's not a problem if she is autistic, or I don't mind. And if she's not, okay, she's not. It doesn't really bother her life. But yeah, she was looking at her psychological report, and the problems she has in her academics, the dyscalculia, the this and the that, they are there also in autistic, or in the autism spectrum. They exist, and the lining of things, it exists. Of course, there are people who do obsessively line things up. She could have OCD. Maybe there is an OCD. I have no idea how OCD works. I did psychology counseling stream, not clinical. So I have no clue what the symptoms of OCD are, except that people are repetitive and it needs to be perfect, whatever it is. I think that's what I know. So she lines things up, always. And I mentioned that before. So when the pediatrician said, oh, maybe she's autistic, my friend and I said, maybe she's autistic. And we said, okay, so what's the next step? The pediatrician insisted on giving me 2 names of people who can assess my daughter. The first person, I can't remember why I didn't go to them, but I don't know if I called and they said, no, they can't assess her. But there was a reason I didn't go to the first person. I don't even remember the name anymore. And then there was another person whose name she wrote down. It's a professor. I will call her the nutty professor, but she's worse than nutty. Nutty professor sounds benign, crazy, funny. She was nothing. She was not funny at all. She's a cruel person. One of her reviews, Google reviews, it actually kind of mirrors my situation, kind of, because, yeah, the person said that she's been having psychotherapy for a long time, and her psychotherapist said to her, don't you think you've got ADHD? The things you struggle with, they sound like someone who's got ADHD. So she said, okay, I'll go and get assessed. She went and got assessed. And Nutty Professor said, no, you don't have ADHD. She brushed it away. That's what the review said. And she thought, you're dismissing me. You're really being rude. And the last appointment she had, the Nutty Professor was so rude that she made her leave after 10 minutes, but charged her for the full session. And it's a lot of money that these Nutty Professors charge. But then it wasn't a big mistake, because other assessments do cost that much. The amount we were charged is normal for an assessment, but it's normal for a proper assessment. This was not a proper assessment. So we got there where Nutty Professor works. Okay, so it's not in Milnerton, it's not in Parklands, it's not in Tableview, it's not in Melkbos. Nutty Professor is somewhere there, out of here. So it took us about 40 minutes to get there. Right, we arrived thankfully on time. We were nervous because I don't know the traffic. I don't know what traffic is like there. And we got there. We announced ourselves. Well, we didn't announce ourselves. We spoke to the receptionist, and then we sat down. The receptionist is colored. The Nutty Professor is Afrikaans, is white. So generally, most coloreds speak Afrikaans. So Nutty Professor comes in about 7 minutes before appointment, 5 minutes. As I said, we were like 7 minutes early. So the receptionist tells her that, oh, your next client, Marissa, is here. Nutty Professor tells her in Afrikaans, assuming I don't understand, I guess, or maybe she is just that rude anyway. So she said, no, well, they can wait because they're early. And then she went back to her office. She didn't have a patient. There was no patient. And I thought, wow, I didn't like that attitude, just the waiting, the phrasing was wrong. They can just wait, they're early anyway. It was really rude. And to not greet us and not acknowledge our presence also, for me, it was rude. It's not the way we are as humans. Maybe in other countries it's normal, but none of my doctors have ever ignored me, ever. Maybe in a GP's place where there are many GPs, other GPs won't look at me, but then they come and say, whoever. So yeah, she took her coffee, and I thought, wow, okay. We go in, and guys, I've probably forgotten some of the things. My friend who I've told about this, I told her the same day, my friend, please put in comments anything else I mentioned to you that I might not mention now, so that whoever else is in my shoes will know how bad Nutty Professor was. So we went in to speak to Nutty Professor, and she asked, why are you here? So I told her, well, the pediatrician and the psychologist suspect that my daughter is autistic, and the pediatrician said I should get her assessed. So she asked again, but why are you here? So I said, because the pediatrician said we should get her assessed. That's why I'm here. You do assessments. That's why I'm here. So, yeah. So then she asked about history and all that stuff, birth history. And then she asks me, and then she asked, what school and stuff. So I told her we're homeschooling. Then she asked Marissa what grade she's in. Marissa said she's in grade 1. Marissa's maths is probably kindergarten level, but I did say she's probably got dyscalculia. It's just that she's too young for us to assess for it. You have to be age 10 to assess. So she's in the middle. Her reading is actually grade 2 level, but I'm just sticking to grade 1 so that she's got the proper foundation because of her spelling problems with the dyslexia. So let me just make sure she has the basics, the foundation, because if she's already skipping lines in grade 1 books, she obviously will skip lines in her grade 2 books, which I assume have smaller words. Yeah. So we are in grade 1 technically, but her reading ability, I give her books that are like grade 3 level for her to read on her own. So yeah, I kind of flinched when she said I'm in grade 1, because the work we're doing is all over the place, and much of it is actually just therapy. It's OT stuff, speech stuff. We're not actually doing much schoolwork. because of her problems. But the schoolwork we're doing is mostly grade 1. But you know why? It's not because she's not able to. I'm sure she'll be able to do a grade 2 syllabus, but I began grade 1. So she said grade 1, which then made Nutty Professor think that she didn't ask me why she's doing grade 1. I mean, I'm the teacher. She could have asked, and I could have told her why. But then in her head, it's because that's the limit of her ability. Nutty Professor assumed that that's the best she can do overall, globally, which is not true. But I left it. She didn't ask anyway, so I couldn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Nutty Professor then asks me, okay, so I told her we're using a Christian curriculum. Now, let me add this. I did say this. I had asked in a homeschooling group of parents of special needs children in South Africa if they've got any recommendations for pro homeschooling, or people who were not anti homeschooling. And besides the one who is anti me homeschooling, there was no other recommendation. The answers were good luck, all the best. You won't find one. We can't find one. We also want to know. Those were the different responses. It was a matter of there's only one who is pro homeschooling, but only if you're not black. Everyone else had no one, even though, of course, they're also not black. So so I knew already going in that she won't care about our reasons for homeschooling. The Christian foundation of the reason why we homeschool. And this is the thing, we homeschool our children, especially these younger ages, because we want them to form a solid character. A high school, I'm actually fine with, especially because of my special needs children. My high school, my older two, I wanted to continue because I can. It's easy for me to continue with them. We could learn together. But with special needs education, it's a whole other ball game. And I don't have the ability to do special needs homeschooling. The executive functioning, how to treat that, I don't have that knowledge. So I am learning as I go, and I'm sick. That's the worst. That's the biggest and main reason why I'm actually not into homeschooling, because I'm sick. I would rather not homeschool. But the problems. Price, distance doesn't work for me, and lack of suitable government places. So I have no choice. Right now I'm homeschooling because I have no choice, but I began homeschooling by choice because I wanted them to learn good behavior first before being exposed to bad behavior. Children are children. Children are human. Children are raised by different kinds of humans. You can go to as Christian a school as possible, but the pupils are not going to be all Christian. They might copy what they see on TV. They might be abused sexually. Sexually abused children will tend to sexually abuse other children. Not all of them, but it's so normal. And I mean long-term abuse by their own parents. It's so normal that they will do the same thing to other children. Not because they're malicious, but because it's normal. Not all, but it is a problem. And of course there's bullying and racism and whatever else. But mostly I just want them to first learn from a Bible foundation, to be honest, to not want to be better than everybody else and be first in that competitive thing, that competitive principle. We don't want that inculcated in them. And school is all about who got A's, and this one is the best swimmer, and this one is the God who got this, and this one is, that is school. Well, that was school for me. And so she didn't ask all of that. She asked what curriculum, and I told her Christian American. And then she said, "Oh, are you American?" So I said, "No, I am South African." And she looked at me like she didn't believe me. And she says, "But then why do you have that accent?" Guys, so many thoughts went through my head, and I honestly didn't know what to say. This is a young person. She's not 50 or 60. She's young. Why is she expecting a black accent from me? Why is she expecting any accent from me? Why is my accent that jarring and troubling to her, Miss Nutty Professor, that she would even ask me about it? And what does my accent have to do with anything, especially like to autism? So I told her, no, I'm South African. And then she asked, where did you grow up? Like, that will change anything. So I told her, in Guguletu. And I made sure I said it as black as possible. Guguletu was a township formed by the apartheid government where they shoved all the people who they took from places like by that river, Observatory. There were blacks in Observatory, were moved. Observatory is in a white area, who were moved from Observatory so that it can become a white area, and dumped in the township of one of the Guguletu. So I told her I come from Guguletu, and I made sure I said it with a proper accent. So she asked some questions, and then she asks, what high school did you go to? What school did you go to? So I told her, well, my high school was Rustenburg Girls High School. Ah, that explains her accent. She really irritated me. Maybe one of you can tell me why it irritated me. Maybe one of you can put it in a sentence or two or three. One of you can explain why it's a problem. But it was a problem. It really was. It grated. But I can't say why. All I know is it was a problem, and when I told my white friend, she was angry on my behalf too. So there is a problem with that obsession with my accent in the first place. And it just showed me also that she wants to put me in a box. She saw black and she thought, Xhosa, whatever, Sutu, whatever person. And that's why she spoke in Afrikaans as if I don't understand. So she asked that. Okay, so we continue on with the assessment part. She asks Amarissa to play. So Amarissa takes the box of toys. She takes all the animals and she arranges them by color and by size. So the dark striped tigers, and then the light tigers, and then all of them ranged in color, not just higgledy-piggledy, all of them facing that direction, all of them facing the front. And then she took blocks, like Lego, but bigger than Lego. She took the Lego and she put them on top of each other. She made sure she searched if there was a green, if she had green, yellow, and red. She had the green, and she searched in the box for another green block to put on top of the green. Everything was well planned and very organized by color and size with the animals. So she did that, and all the animals were in a line, straight line. They're at the zoo, but they're in a straight line. They're all facing out the park, over the wall, all of them. And the wall is there to keep them in. And she had asked me, the psychiatrist had asked me before, she is a professor in real life, before Amarissa came in, what I have noticed. So I told her that she does play, but it's stereotyped, it's repetitive. She's always playing that she's going somewhere. That's what she plays. Let's go in the car and we're going somewhere. That's it. And Amarissa said the exact same thing. When the psychiatrist asked her, Nutty Professor asked her, what do you do? What do you play? She told her, oh, going somewhere. And I said, phew, bingo, there we go. Nutty Professor then asked her, so I said to Nutty Professor, see, this is why the pediatrician thought maybe she's autistic, because of the lining up of things. So she says, Amarissa, how did you arrange your things? So she said, by color. And then Miss Nutty Professor points at her bookshelf, and it's arranged. Her books are like white spine, black, blue spine, whatever spine. I guess her point was, I'm not autistic, but I also do that. So what's wrong with you? But you see, the problem. I was not saying, I am convinced my daughter is autistic. I want you to show it. That was her attitude. And I want you to prove it. Her attitude was as if I'm saying, look, she's autistic because she's doing this. And I was saying, this is why the pediatrician wondered if she's not autistic. Her attitude was combative. Her attitude is racist, or rude at least. Her attitude was fit in a box, yeah. And then it gets worse. So she says to me, after she's observed and listened to me, now people, do I sound like I've got a communication disability or disorder? Do I sound as if my speech patterns are not typical? Do my sentences not always make sense? This woman had the nerve to tell me that my daughter speaks the way she speaks because she doesn't have anyone around her who spends time with her who speaks normally. It's like in her head she couldn't hear me. In her head, I'm telling you this, I am sure. In her head she saw me, and in her head people like me cannot speak properly. And she is intent on believing that. Now she's Afrikaans. I bet you my English was actually better than hers. And I don't say that in a proud way. There have been Afrikaners who've actually told my husband also that, yeah, you should come and teach me English because, whoa, I can't speak English. It's not like I'm saying I'm better than her. They are raised in a very Afrikaner world where their high schools are Afrikaans. They go to Afrikaans universities. Afrikaans is spoken more than English. So that's why I'm saying that I bet you my English is actually better than hers anyway. But yes, and Marissa speaks in her abnormal way with her grammar all mixed up because she doesn't have anyone else. Everyone else around her is autistic and therefore she's just copying them. And I'm thinking, okay, but what about my teenage children who are with us? What about me? What about my husband? What about the other people we interact with at church? What about my friend who hangs out with them often? How in the world is she concluding that my daughter speaks abnormally or non-typically because that's all she hears? Why would she conclude, looking at me, listening to me, that the speech surrounding my daughter is not typical? And so she insisted that my daughter needs to go to a school. And I said, ain't gonna happen. I don't have the money for a proper, safe school. Nor do I don't have the money to get there either, because it also includes transport. So yeah, and I don't have the health. So I said, school is not gonna happen. And then she said, oh, maybe you should get her into some play school, whatever. And I said, that's not gonna happen. And she insisted that she needs to then have play dates. So I told her, we've done that. We do that. And she goes to church. But I promise she's some atheist person. So that didn't mean anything to her. And speaking of which, when she goes to church, what speech is she hearing there? So, and she said, but she needs to spend time with other children because she needs to be socialized. She needs to learn how to behave. And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, and how do you think I behave? Why must she go out there to learn how to behave? Am I not a good enough role model? Is my husband not a good enough role model to teach her how to behave? And what about my other children, my teenagers especially? Why would she need outsiders as if we are not good enough? That was my question in my head. And then she went on and said, as for her lining things up all the time, Marissa told her that, well, I like to line things up. She lines up everything. That's what she told her. And she does. It's not only when she's playing. She lines things up in her room. She puts she puts her stars in a row. She puts my dumbbells in a row and organized in color, blah, blah, blah. That's who my daughter is. She's an organized line person. This nutty professor then said, the reason why my 9-year-old daughter lines things up is because everyone else in the house does too. She even asked me, are you organized? I'm like, there's a difference between organized and lining things constantly up no matter what. There is a difference. I told her, no, I'm not. My books are open everywhere and nothing is according to color or size or anything. Believe me, you should see my books and my pens. So I told her, no, I'm not. But she insisted, guys. She insisted that Marissa is stupid. That's really what she's saying. That Marissa will sit there. She insisted. What she's really saying was, Marissa sat down and thought to herself, I've seen Mickey make lines. Let me also take these animals and make a line with them because I've seen Mickey. That's what she said. She said, my daughter is playing like that because that's all she ever sees. That's what she said. And that is why I need to make sure she plays with other children. So I got home and I was thinking, okay, so I told her we have done play dates. I had a friend who disappeared on me. And I've got two who just disappeared on me and I don't know why. I've never said anything bad about either of them. I've never been cruel to them. So the one was very close and I was there during this play date. And the child was rough, really rough. So the child would say, come, let's go play. And then my children picked a toy and he would grab it from them. He's got his own toy and he'd grab the toy from them. And then they would say, oh, can we go play on your drums? And after 2 seconds, he'd say, no, let's go. I'm tired of that. Let's go. He was a big bully. He was really the leader of the pack, but rough. Pulling. And there came a time when they said, Mom, we don't want to play with him anymore. Or, Mom, that boy pulled the sword and I'm still playing with it. It was not nice. So I did tell the mom that I'd love my children to play with yours, but they're traumatized. They really were. They're not used to that. We are all gentle and kind. We ask before we take, and my children share. None of them, like all 6, none of them have that selfish spirit. I don't know if it is because they're autistic, for all I know, but none of them say, no, this is mine. You can't have it. So it was foreign to them. And that's okay. It's okay when you are 6 to not be used to that kind of behavior. Obviously, when you're 16, I will warn you and you will have seen it and you will know how to respond to it better than when you're 6. So that didn't work out. Other play date, the person had volunteered so that I can get a break. But the less healthier I became, the more she disappeared. I don't know if she found them overwhelming because they weren't yet medicated the last time she took them. I was really grateful. I will not lie. I was really grateful that she and the children hung out with my children. So it did hurt that she just stopped. And she didn't say why. At least tell me why. Tell me they're too much. And then I'll tell you, well, they're medicated now. Can they come hang out? They loved her cat. They loved her grandmother. You know, they interacted with people. And I kept telling this nutty professor, but they do interact with people. They do know, they've seen how to behave. And there are children at church. Not like they sit in a pew and there's just adults. And more importantly, they were traumatized in a way by that bully. It wasn't that bad, but it was bad compared to how we live. And when they went to church, they had to do things in a different manner, which traumatized both of them, which for me, again, says autism. I mean, ADHD does overlap, yes, but they didn't want the fact that things were done differently. It wasn't the fact that there was a different teacher. It was the fact that they have been used to, if you want to say something, you raise your hand quietly. You don't go, me. That is not how they've been raised. And they both dislike noise. They hate noise. They cannot stand noise. So the last time they went, this is their interpretation. As I say, there is a communication issue. But they said that when they got there, they were told they had to raise their hand and shout, and it was too much for them. They don't. So I told the psychiatrist, they don't want to hang out with other children anyway. They don't want to. I told her, I showed them the picture of a special school that we can afford. It's not that bad. It's not big. And my daughter was the first one to say, oh, I bet it's noisy. let's not go there. And most important for me is that a child, especially a neurodivergent child, deserves understanding and respect. And we need to know that when they say no, there's a very deep no and meaning behind it. So if my child doesn't, and the other reason was they didn't want to hold hands, and they were told to hold hands in a circle or something like that at the church. And she said, I don't want to hold hands. Just feels yucky. So there's that. And I know my son is definitely touch avoidant, so I wouldn't want him to be forced to hold hands. And that was the thing. This teacher at this church, she was forcing them. My children cannot write. They have very weak hands, fingers, muscles, and they just don't do coloring in much. But the teacher insisted, you must color in. She had no, really? Seriously? No, even I don't tell children that. I've taught, not my own, but at church as well. If the child doesn't want to color in, I'll say, okay, you can sit quietly and watch us. Or I'll talk to them. I have never forced any child to do something unnecessary or something that is not going to save their life. I'll never force it. So that also bothered me anyway, that they were forced. You must color in and you must take a toy. They didn't want the toys. I mean, who knows where they've been and who knows how many germs there are on them. Who knows how many children have sneezed on them. And given my sicknesses, that's what I mean. That's my background, that okay, but they don't want the toys. They don't feel comfortable taking the toys. So I told the psychiatrist that when we do put them in social situations, there are reasons that they give for not enjoying those social situations. And I honor that. And I don't force them. And so I will not force them to maybe go out and then hold hands in a circle with other children. There's no need to hold hands in a circle. There's no need, really. They will not lose anything, especially given they are neurodivergent. What's okay for us is not okay for them. And we should understand that. So that was that, guys. My daughter has communication issues because all of us have communication issues, apparently. My daughter lines things up because all of us line things up. We don't play in any other way except to line things up. And she's such a blank slate that just copies, that she just also lines things up because she's thinking, I saw Micaiah line things up. And I keep even telling her that you're talking about she must socialize. Ugh! She must be socialized as if we're wild animals. I don't think she understands what the meaning is of being socialized. It means being able to fit in society. She can go to the shops. She can go to the park. She takes walks. She's been given bicycles by children down the road. They've been given biscuits by old people. Believe me, my children are very well socialized. You do not need, and this is what she had insisted, my daughter needs to spend time with another 9-year-old. They must both be the same age. She must be a peer, must be same age, so that she learns how to be socialized. We are not a pack of wild animals, Miss Nutty Professor. We are not ignorant. I have nothing positive to say to end this, guys. I have nothing to say except if I can spend 2 hours with my daughter in a car, certainly I spend enough time with her to talk to her and for her to have learned how to behave. Unless, of course, how I behave is not good enough. Charlotte is going to the
doctor.
Why?
Well, she bumped her head.
She bumped her head. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see. I'm sorry, Charlotte. Oh.
This is Mickey is the doctor.
Is Mickey's the doctor? Oh, okay, doctor. You better go to your ward, to your room.
Okay, hold on. And then for the mommies.
Oh, shame. Is Ami's baby okay? Is she also sick?
Yes, they're all sick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's go to the doctor.
Okay, enjoy. Enjoy your trip. Bye.